Welcome to the Dream Journal from the studios of KSQD in Santa Cruz. The Dream Journal is a weekly show where we explore the power of nighttime dreams through conversations with dream experts and with callers like you. In the words of Carl Jung, who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens. Today's music is called Triskodecaphenia, cut into 13 pieces. Inner peace for outer peace and mindful body awareness. Today's guest is Santa Cruz local movement coach Selene Kumin Vega. I'm your host, Catherine Bell of Experiential Dreamwork, and welcome to the Dream Journal. We are also a weekly podcast. Please subscribe, rate, and review, but most importantly, tell your friends. Archives are available at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all those places. You can also go to ksqd.org/the-dream-journal. Plus, we are now on PRX, the Public Radio Exchange. You can look us up there or maybe contact your local community radio station about syndicating the Dream Journal. Wouldn't that be lovely? We have an in-studio guest today. Welcome, Selene.
Hi, glad to be here with you.
Excellent. All right. Selene Kumin Vega, PhD, is a licensed psychotherapist, a dancer, and a full professor at Saybrook University's Mind-Body Medicine graduate program. Her work with movement and experiential modalities evolved over 50 years of facilitating self-exploration, connection, and transformation. She developed and taught courses including body-oriented approaches to psychotherapy and mind-body-spirit applications in psychotherapy. You can find about Selene at her website, spiritmoving.com. Okay, Selene, so good to have you on the show. We met years ago, back in 2017, I do believe, with the first Festival of Dreams, which is a local conference, dream conference that I've been hosting. For years, we've had a break. Thank you, pandemic. But we'll be back. We will be back. And she helped facilitate workshops in the first and the second Festival of Dreams, which are all about movement. So tell me about movement. What is movement to you, and what is it that draws you to that?
Well, I'll start by saying I was startled by your description of me as a movement coach.
Oh, yeah. Okay, well, thank you. Please correct the record. Yes.
Partly because when I think of movement coach, I think of someone who is coaching someone's movements. More like telling you physically what you should be doing with your body, how to improve your walking, your whatever athletic ability.
Like a physical therapist.
Yes.
Yes, and that's not what you do.
That's not what you do.
Oh, good. Thank you for that correction.
Yeah, movement has been a part of my life and my work since I was born. My mother was a dancer and dance teacher, and so I was exposed to working with my body in different ways than just learning to walk from the very beginning, and always have felt drawn to that as my primary language in a way. I was an introverted child, and movement really did give me a way to completely express who I was, to be who I was, and to have a place to connect with others through that language without having to say anything. And as I grew into that world of dance, apprenticing at 15 to learn how to work with creative dance with children, for example. Spent a lot of time in my teens exploring theater games and a lot of improvisational work, that what I finally realized was not so much important to me in terms of becoming a performer, but helped me to become more connected to myself, more able to move in the world in a way that was meaningful to me, and that the things that had helped me to do that were useful for other people as well. Mm-hmm. So I found myself using movement to support people in finding their way through their struggles, finding their way to just figure out who they were in the world. Mm-hmm. I became a psychotherapist later on as a way to give more credibility to the work that I was already doing with movement, as a way to support people and kind of awaken our consciousness, awaken our depth, go deeper with ourselves.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I wonder, could you give maybe some examples, either from your own life or other folks? Like, how does, we could maybe, this might be a time to talk about movement with dreaming, or how do you use movement with folks? How do you help them? Mm-hmm. That's not physical therapy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I will say that I do a lot of work with shifting the state of consciousness that someone is in, that actually I think moves us more towards a dream state. It may not be a sleeping dream, but we're more connected to those unconscious processes that we get to connect with so directly in dreams, but then sometimes we don't know how to bring it back into waking life. It took me years to realize that what I was doing was putting people into a trance of sorts. You don't just walk in from the street and say to someone, okay, show me how you really feel with your body. It's like it just doesn't happen. You have to shift the consciousness first. And so doing some relaxation work, shifting the breathing patterns, shifting the focus, beginning to allow the stream of consciousness that's kind of always there in the background to become forefront. And then opening up the door to seeing what does the body want to do right now. And giving that freedom to let the body tell us what's going on. And sometimes we may walk in, you ask somebody, how are you? And they say, oh, I'm fine. Right? Right? We all know that.
Totally.
But if we go under the surface of that and say, how are you really feeling? Sometimes it's hard to find words for that. Sometimes it's hard for someone to feel like it's really okay to say what that even is, if they can connect with the words enough to know. But if I take them into a nice, relaxed space, I may use music. I often use music to help people get to that deeper place, and then begin to explore, well, what's going on in your body right now? What is your attention drawn to? Maybe it's a place where there's pain in your body. Maybe it's something that feels more emotional, but you are actually feeling it in your body. Maybe a pressure at your chest. Maybe butterflies in the belly. There's something that is bringing your attention there. And what if you allow that part of your body to begin to explore that feeling? It's like, what would it like to do? Maybe it wants to wiggle. Maybe it wants to roll around. Maybe it wants to jump up and down. It's like very different. I like working with groups, partly because it can sometimes feel very vulnerable to go into those body-oriented places. And in a group with everybody there with their eyes closed, but you're not alone and nobody's watching, just you, and everybody's moving at the same time, sometimes it feels like there's a little more freedom to really go there.
Okay, so so now we're talking about groups, which is interesting. I must say, as you're speaking, my mind is totally exploring my body and like, where do I want to move? Like, ooh, it's very yummy. This is very yummy kind of a practice. And so you bring this into your psychotherapy as well as in the groups you do one-on-one.
I do, although I do find, certainly I bring that focus and attention into my psychotherapy, but it's actually a rare client who comes in and says, I came here to move. You had it on your card that you do movement and psychotherapy, and that's what I want. And even then we'll talk a little bit about what's up. What is it that's bringing you here? But often there's a real sense in that kind of person that that there's going to be some kind of a body exploration that's going to take them through the process they need to go through to heal whatever's going on. For other people, even though they may have come because they saw that word movement, when it comes to it, it's a little uncomfortable to actually get up and move. And it's more like, well, what does your body want to do right now? It might be curling up in a ball and having me put pillows all around you. And that's where this really doesn't look like a movement coach at all.
I see.
Yeah.
Exactly, right. I see it feels like there's a great deal of intuition involved in trusting the client's intuition and then they learn to trust themselves.
Yes, very much. I would say this is on the order of what Stanislav Grof calls the inner teacher. You know, our inner journey, our inner wisdom. There's something that goes on under the surface of our conscious mind that knows what we need. And if given the right context and setting and safety to go there, it's going to take us there. And what the psychotherapist or coach or whoever is there, even just a friend willing to sit and witness, what they're doing is really just holding that space, being a witness, and allowing a process to unfold.
The witness seems very, very important here. Very important.
Yeah.
Right. So how does let's tie this into dreams.
Okay.
Yes.
So I love working with dreams in group settings because in a dream, there's so much going on usually.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And sometimes someone will only remember one little piece, one little moment of something that happens, and that is, I think, easier to explore for one person with movement. But often there's a whole plot line that went on, and getting a whole group of people to support someone in exploring their dreams. The different people take on different roles in the dream. And by that, I don't mean necessarily just the people or even animals that might show up, but everything about it. So if it's a dark and starry night, someone could be the dark and starry night.
Yeah. Okay, right.
And all of that might include words, but a lot of the most important processing of it comes out of the movement. How does that dark starry night interact with the dream ego, the person who's exploring their own dream, and how are they interacting with each of the elements of the dream that's there, and what happens in their own body in response to each of those other elements? What's the dance that they're doing with each one of them?
Right. Now, one of the things I often do with my folks and in workshops and things is I call it dream embodiment, where it's acting out the dream drama, where you're actually like taking the different parts of the dream, and the dreamer can just be in the different parts, but it's kind of it's like a drama. It's like acting out a theater kind of a thing. And now you have a little bit of a different take on that, right? Why don't you say a little bit more about your approach?
Well, I would say it's still to some extent theater, but it's a little more surrealistic theater.
Right.
And I think part of how I might describe it to the group we're working with is going to influence that we don't turn it into just a story with a plot line and things that people say to each other, because often there aren't that many words in a dream. There may be a few, and they're powerful. Right. But surrounding those words is a lot else going on. A lot of feelings that are happening, maybe some movements, maybe a shift in the scene that's really important, that doesn't have words, or if you tried to put it to words, they wouldn't have as much impact on us. For someone to say, oh, okay, all of a sudden I'm not a dark starry night now, the sun is rising. That feels really different than someone shifting from embodying a dark starry night to all of a sudden feeling that sun begin to rise, and their body begins to embody that sun rising, and the whole shift in the energy of the group and how they're relating to the dreamer as the sun versus the other, and no words have to be said.
Because it's all in the body, and we are really, as humans, or as mammals perhaps, we're really adept at reading each other's bodies and facial expression and arms and shoulders. Just the movements, the way that we move are very intuitive, and there's something about also not needing words. Yeah. So often, I struggle to define how I'm feeling because I'm looking for a word. Yeah. But what if I was looking for a movement?
Yeah.
Ooh, this is getting me thinking.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, very much. I think the other thing about words is that we get used to the narrative that we've created to describe ourselves and our lives and our stories. You were asking for an example. I would say, back in the days when I was working at Star Lodge Hospital, which no longer exists. It was a wonderful residential treatment program in Scotts Valley, once upon a time, set up for addictions, but we had opened it up for eating disorders and depression and anxiety and a lot of other of the kinds of things that one can benefit from being in a residential setting, but being in a psychiatric hospital setting might not be the right setting for that. Although it was that, it had a more informal feeling. Well, as we were opening up the eating disorder program there, we had our first person come in, and so I didn't have a group to do my movement group with. I did the intake with our first person, and they spent an hour or so telling me their story, and we did what you might do, and being supportive of hearing somebody's really difficult story. And then it was time for the movement group.
Okay.
She and I. Yeah. And I started it the way I usually do, with relaxation, lying down on the ground, and my idea was to do what I usually do, which is to begin to awaken this person into exploring with movement a little bit what was happening in their body. And really, it didn't take very long before we were in a very different place than we had been through that whole hour of hearing a very difficult story. But now there were tears. Now there was real feeling. Now we were under the surface of the story that had been created, which could be told as if it was just a story without the deep feelings.
But the movement awakened the feelings?
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
So now we were in a place where we could do some real healing work. Just being in the story wasn't going to get us there.
Okay. Right. So I love that. So there's so when we so there's something I want to come back to the witness. There's something about that I think is really valuable, and I wonder what you could say about the witness. Like, I mean, as a psychotherapist, you're a witness, and when you do groups, you do pairs or triads, right? And do you have any sense, like, what is that all about, the witness?
Well, I think there's a couple of pieces to it. One is that it's not just about the person being witnessed. I mean, in a way, you might feel as the witness, I'm doing this service for this other person because I care about them, or just because they're going to do it for me afterwards too. So it's like we're going back and forth here. Yeah. But there is something that I think awakens in us as witness, in allowing our hearts to open to another human being's real deep self, real deep pain, joy, everything that's there in them. Getting ourselves out of the way, and yet we feel a resonance often in ourselves because this is a human being, and everything that anyone experiences is something that any of us are capable of experiencing.
Right.
So there's a real sense of, I think, that an impactful connection to the fact that I'm not alone.
Okay.
That here we are, two beings together, and I am holding a space for this other being exploring, but I'm right there with them. And we're both here together, and there's something connecting us that's beyond the physical. I don't have to touch them to feel really connected to what's happening for them.
It reminds me a lot of dream groups, and that when one person shares a dream, is often very impactful for people listening, and that they can see themselves in the dream. You can see yourself in the other person, in the movement. Just, as human beings, when we share with each other, there's something very, very powerful about that.
Very powerful. Back at in the earlier days of Saybrook University, where I am now, Stanley Krippner was for a very, very long time one of our main faculty members, and he would have, during our residential conferences when we'd come together, he would have a dream table every morning at breakfast, and that's exactly how it would work. Someone would share their dream, and everyone who was there was given an opportunity to say, if that was my dream, this is what it would mean for me. This is how it impacted me to imagine myself in the dream that you just described.
Oh my goodness. Well, we had a guest just a few weeks ago who also talked about Stanley Krippner's dream table. So there's something powerful about that. There's something there. So this is all about connecting with inner wisdom and really trusting ourselves. And by speaking out loud and being witnessed, there's a way that I learned to trust myself. Like inside my head, I think, I'm a horrible person, and if I say this out loud, people are going to run away. But when I get to say it out loud and nobody runs away, in fact, they're like, oh, yeah, me too, then I really can feel that support, and I start to learn to trust myself.
Yes. There's a wonderful exercise that we do sometimes with Stephen Gilligan at his trance camp, which is several weeks of generative trance training. It was wonderful. But one of the exercises we do going off in dyads, and each person getting a chance to say, what I want you to know about me is... fill in the blank. I want you to know I'm, intelligent and really quick with my wit. What I don't want you to see about me is the part of me that's scared that I'm going to say the wrong thing and you're going to not like me. Sharing both of those is so powerful, and the other person doesn't do anything other than sit and receive. Kind of actively, but without words. Right.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, I love that. And so how does this tie in with spirit? Mind, body, spirit. What do you see? And spirit moving is your website. This is Selene Kumin Vega, and we're talking about movement and so how does this tie in with spirit? What does that spirit mean to you?
Yeah, well, that's, I think, an interesting question right there. What does it mean to me? Yeah. Because I think it means different things to different people, and I like to make room for each person to find their own meaning for that, which makes it hard sometimes when I'm trying to bring that in with a group, and I want to make sure that everybody feels like their own understanding of what that is has room to be present there. People often put spirituality and religion together, and there are some overlaps, like a Venn diagram. There's a place where they do overlap, but there are also places where they each have their separate terrain. I think there are plenty of places where spirituality can live without religion having anything to do with it. So there's not a specific understanding of what that means for someone. They're exploring. What does it mean to understand myself as not just being in this body and mind. So the thoughts that I think, the edges of the physicality that I live in, this body, are not all there is. There's something that goes beyond that. There's my connection to the earth. There's my connection to whatever divinity I might understand there to be. There's a connection to really what we might call transpersonal. What goes beyond the personal into something larger.
Okay. Yeah, transpersonal, something beyond what is physical, maybe even beyond my mind. And connecting with that and just acknowledging that that's true and interacting as well. And so I'm wondering about self-care.
Oh, yes.
Tell me about what is that? What is that for you?
You know, it's gotten to be a word that everybody has heard by now, but often it's associated with, I'm going to go take bubble baths. It's like, and it's really more about tuning into what it is that we need to not just sustain ourselves, but to thrive. What is going to support our ongoing life force? And that really looks different for different people. For one person, it might be sitting with a friend and just having a relaxed time together. And for another person, it needs to be time alone, maybe writing in a journal or taking a walk in the woods. Bubble baths are fine. There's nothing wrong with them. But I think it has to be something that's not just come from a list that somebody provides for you of what self-care means. It really needs to be looking inside, and sometimes just that time of looking inside to find out, what do I need right now, is the perfect piece of the first piece of self-care.
Well, and I can certainly, in my situation, I often find I don't know. Yeah. But what's coming to me as we're talking is that I can start by, well, where am I at right now? What do I feel? And can I make a shape? Can I make a movement based on what I feel? And then is there something that will help get me to the place where I want to be?
Yes.
Yes.
Part of it is just quieting down enough so that all the influences that are always there, are all around us and in our mind about what we think we should be doing, we've got to get those out of the way for long enough to be able to hear those fairly subtle messages that are coming from our bodies often.
They are subtle.
Yeah, I would say that one of the things I like to communicate to students and clients is, we all have often that inner voice that says, "What's the matter with me?" Yeah, right? That one?
Oh, yes. I don't know.
I learned quite a while ago to reframe that whenever it comes up at all into, what do I need right now? Because that's really what it is. What's the matter with me is usually about some part of me complaining in a way that will be loud enough that I'll listen.
Okay, right.
Right. And then if I can stop criticizing that voice and judging it for, not doing what I want it to do right now, and actually listen, there's often a lot of information there about what I actually do need right now.
What do I need? So sort of more forward focused, like what do I need? Rather than shame, because what's wrong with you is kind of a shame thing. It's like, how come you're not in that place of peace right now? There's blame and shame.
And usually I'm not in that place of peace because there's something I'm not taking care of in myself. And it's going to get louder and louder until I finally listen.
That is the truth, isn't it? And that's, of course, where dreams has come in, like the recurring dreams or dreams that kind of keep knocking on the door. It's like, okay, you're not taking care of this. We need something here. There's something that is missing.
Yes.
And something you need, something, the dreams seem to really express where I'm at, and they often show a way forward, a way to get to what I need.
Yes. I think dreams are partly important because they are a way of making that connection between what's under the surface of our conscious mind, which is what I'm talking about. How can we quiet down? Can we get those other things out of the way so we can hear that? Dreams are another way to hear that.
Yeah. And I think they're working with us all the time, even the ones we don't remember are working away at what we need and where we're at. So we're going to take a short break, and then after we come back, we're going to be talking about inner peace for outer peace. Like how do we use the quest for inner peace as a way to create more outer peace. And so I'd like to say that our guest today is Selene Kumin Vega, and we are talking about the mind, body, spirited approaches to psychotherapy and self-growth. And we are broadcast live from the KSQD studios in Santa Cruz, and we are co-broadcast live in San Jose by KCXU. Okay, so welcome back to the Dream Journal. And next week we will speak with Dr. Dream herself, Kelly Sullivan Walden. She is the author of several Chicken Soup for the Soul books, The Oracle Deck, and her latest book, A Crisis is a Terrible Thing to Waste. Kelly Sullivan Walden is a dreaming powerhouse. So she will be on the show next week. Okay, Selene Kumin Vega, so glad to have you on the show. We were talking about the idea of inner peace for outer peace. Tell me a little bit about what that means to you. What is that?
Well, right now it actually is what we're calling an event, a workshop that I've been doing. We've done it twice now, once in December and once in January, that we're calling Inner Peace for Outer Peace. Mm-hmm. It came about because some folks in the worlds that I run around in, there were some folks who were feeling like there was no place where they could really talk about their feelings about what was happening in the Middle East.
Yeah, absolutely.
That whatever they said, it felt like they got accused of being on the wrong side or having not taken sides or whatever it was. There was no place to go to just talk about what's going on in me. Mm-hmm. How am I feeling about this? And a real sense that if we're going to be able to do anything about some of the really big things going on in our world that are not peaceful, the wars that we're in the midst of, and the wars we don't even know about, really, from where we sit here in the West, we're not going to be able to approach them well if we're coming from a reactive place. Mm-hmm. That we have to first be able to learn how to calm ourselves and calm our own nervous systems rather than jumping into survival mode and lashing back out. We've got to be able to find solutions. We're not in our workshops looking for the solutions here. Not that we don't want them.
Right, okay,
But we know that we really do need to start from having a place where people can just be with, witness each other as human beings having a tough time dealing with what's going on. Mm-hmm. So this is a very international thing that's going on. The people who are involved as facilitators, what we've been doing is a 2-hour event where we come together, we talk a little bit about that. Mm-hmm. We do a guided meditation to come in and find our own hearts, to really create some compassion for ourselves, for the pain that we're in, for compassion for the world and the pain that's out there, and finding ways to be with all of that. And then we come together in small groups with facilitator breakout groups to just have some time to talk about what's going on in me. Not to tell the stories, but to go first from the body. It's like, my gut is churning.
Oh,
my heart is aching. To start from there and witness each other, coming back to that sense of how powerful it can be to witness and be witnessed.
Right. Okay. So it seems like there's like a creation of like a nexus of peace. Like we can't create a peaceful world if we're starting from an agitated place. And so if we want to be the change you want to see, be the peace that you want to see in the world. And how do we get there? We have to start by acknowledging what's true. And I love that you're talking about what's really happening in the world. Yeah. And acknowledging how it feels to each of us individually, which will vary depending on our circumstances. And it's all valid. So, and then coming together and witnessing each other and supporting each other. So this is an ongoing program, or you think you're going to?
It's kind of looking like that. We did it in December because people were, this was actually started by a woman named Leila, who's a coach in Paris and was born in Algeria. So she was feeling like there was a need for this for herself, reached out to another friend who's a coach and therapist in London, Julian Russell, who reached out to me and a few others here in the States, and very international crew of facilitators doing this.
Wow.
And we've been expanding because the first time through that we did it, there was such a strong sense in the group that this is important, this is profound, and can we do it again? Can we do it more?
Oh, right.
So right now we're thinking about once a month, and we just did a second one in early January. We're planning another one in February.
Okay. Interesting. Well, so there'll be information about this on your webpage, or not yet?
Yes, I actually haven't gotten it on my webpage. And I have to say, the way we've been approaching this, because we want to make it a safe enough space. We want to make sure that nobody's coming thinking they're going to come here and make a political stand. That's not what it's about. So we've been limiting it to those who know or have contact with one of the facilitators. And so we've been putting out the information, Facebook, LinkedIn, places like that, sometimes through our email lists. And the idea is, if you know one of the facilitators, contact us and we'll give you the registration link.
Okay, right. So you're all personally vetted by the facilitator.
Yes. If somebody was interested, you could send me an email. We can chat a little bit.
Okay.
See if that's right.
That's great. That's just such a beautiful thing to really acknowledge what's true and have a place to witness each other, to coming together. It reminds me of the whole idea of imaginal cells. Yes, which is, do you know this metaphor? Do you want to
go ahead? No, you tell it. It's fine.
Okay, so my understanding of butterfly physiology is that when a caterpillar turns into a butterfly, that it makes itself a chrysalis, and then inside the chrysalis it turns to goo. It's not like the legs of the caterpillar become the legs of the butterfly. It actually, the whole thing goes to goo. But inside of that goo, there are these cells, a very small number of cells in the goo that have the blueprint of the butterfly, and that is what forms the blueprint for what the butterfly is created from. And so it only takes a very small number of cells to make the butterfly. And so here we are in the goo, the modern goo.
Yeah, and I want to say one of the things that's most important to me about that whole image is that as those imaginal cells emerge, they get attacked by the caterpillar cells.
Oh, yeah.
The caterpillars say, this is alien. It's not me. I can't have this. And they attack the imaginal cells. And I'm not sure, but I think that's actually part of how it turns to goo, is that there's a whole battle going on there.
Oh, I see. It's like, I'm a caterpillar. No.
That's right.
No, there's nothing. You're a butterfly. What is that?
Right. Eventually, there are enough imaginal cells that keep on emerging, even though they're being attacked, that they begin to take up the bulk of what's there and take over.
Well, for me, that's one of the things about the value of community, whether it's, with your partner, with your friends, or in workshops and various larger ways, is to create a place that will nurture these imaginal cells, that will nurture the forward thinking of what does it mean, what are we turning into, what is the butterfly that we're becoming.
Yeah. It's a lot about being able to enter the unknown. And that's a really scary prospect for most of us.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so we often grab onto something that will help us explain that unknown, or give us an anchor or something to understand it by, which may or may not be real or helpful or supportive of our ongoing growth and development. And it's a very vulnerable stance to step off into the unknown and say, I don't know what's next, but what's been happening here isn't working, and I have to open to not knowing in order to find something that will work.
Oh, yikes. Well, this brings me to the idea of acceptance versus action.
Yes.
Like, how do we know how much to accept? Like they say, the wisdom to know the difference.
Yes.
So what are your thoughts about that? How do you know?
Well, I think it's important to not see them as opposed to each other at all. I think sometimes people do think of that way. If I just accept it, means I'm taking whatever is coming at me, and that's just all there is. I can't do anything about it. Whereas action is just moving forward and rejecting everything that has been, in order to take this action to make it different. Acceptance and action, I think, go together well. I think about, for example, work I've done with eating disorders, and in particular, there's often a sense that I won't be lovable, I won't be okay until I change my body to look the way I think it should. And to accept my body the way it is, with the understanding that things could change. It may actually change, but not because there's something so horribly wrong with how it is right now, but rather because I'm on a journey, I'm on a path, and there is going to be movement, and there's going to be change. And maybe I can move towards being stronger, being, more healthy, more all the wonderful things that I really do want. Not because there's something wrong with me, that I have to reject this to move forward, but rather because I'm willing to accept all of who I am and then see what's next.
It reminds me of Carl Rogers' unconditional positive regard.
Yes, very much so.
I have to totally accept where I'm at without any expectation of change.
Yes.
But that's the only way to change.
That's right.
It's a paradox.
Yeah, it's an incredible paradox. Yeah. I would say, again, I talked earlier about non-ordinary states of consciousness and moving people into those. And one of the things that is characteristic of that kind of non-ordinary state of consciousness is the ability to hold paradox, to hold the both and. Rather than this or that. It's like, oh, all of that can be true, even these things that seem contradictory.
Okay. Yeah. It's quite a paradox, and yet there's something there. Like I find that my dreams often paint me a very vivid and sometimes disturbing picture of where I'm at, and yet that is valuable, just to know and to have that image. Like you work with movement, and it seems like the movement is a similar thing as an image in the dream work, where, and in fact, the movement can certainly have a feeling to it. Like if I think of a dream of mine, and I imagine the feeling in the dream, and then how do I move as the feeling? Let's bring it back to dreaming. Like we're talking about the difference between dream theater versus this kind of movement approach. It isn't necessarily that I'm going to stick my arms out because I'm the tree, but maybe I might stand up very tall and feel that straightness. But I have to look like the tree, but what does the tree feel like?
Yes. And the movement gives it less of a static thing, because dreams aren't static at all. They're constantly shifting and changing, sometimes in ways that are weird to us. It's
yes,
like,
often.
Oh yeah, and then all of a sudden you changed into somebody else entirely, right?
Right.
So I think having that sense of movement, and I really do talk about movement not just in terms of the body, but as a metaphor, that there's room for movement. There's room for movement, and moving our bodies actually reminds us of that, reminds us that there's a constant possibility of something being different. If I'm just sitting absolutely still and nothing is moving, it's hard to go from there into what might be next. But if I'm already moving, if there's already a little bit of a movement going on, which there actually always is, because we've got a heartbeat going,
right.
We've got breath going, there's always movement in us. If we can tune into that and say, okay, well, but on this next breath, it might take me into a whole different place. It might shift me to one side or another. All of a sudden my arms want to expand, rather than, oh, I'm a tree, so my arms should be up. It's like, okay, so as I breathe into my treeness and I find my arms expanding, but they are moving because, oh, there's wind, and then all of a sudden they're moving towards the dreamer over there and kind of like moving around them, and then we're in some interaction, and who knows what's going to happen next. And neither the dreamer nor me as the tree might know that, but something begins to emerge in that, I'll often say dance, but in that interaction between these elements, between these pieces that are both part of the larger, now we're back to spirit, the larger interaction that we're part of, the part that goes beyond me as an individual person and includes everything else in some way. And right now, very directly, it's including this tree that came up in my dream. So you explore your own dreams? Do you pay attention to them? I do. I have dream journals going back to when I was about 17. I think I started writing things down. And I have some years where it's just full of dream imagery, really. I would say in the last 10 years or so, I have had more trouble remembering plot lines or anything. I awaken with a feeling of it, and sometimes I'll just sort of lie there trying so hard, just like, okay, there's something there. And when I say that something, I have this very vague feeling
Yes,
sense, but
right.
I can't even come up with a word to describe the something that it is.
Right.
So I value them, and I do spend time even just sitting with the feeling of whatever got left with me, and I'm always overjoyed when I have enough of an actual storyline to write it down in my journal.
Right. Yeah. There's something. There's something about that, as you know. I think there is some changes as we get older. It seems that there's people remember dreams less, but they're then all the more precious. They're still in there. They're still doing their magic. And yes, sometimes they're hard to get a hold of. I love the way you describe that. There's maybe no words for, like, I have like a kind of a gesture almost of something, like there's like it's slipping away. I'm like, what is it?
Yeah, exactly. But I do, as you said, I do feel like they're working in me, even if I don't consciously remember them. There really is a sense of my honoring them feels important. Yeah. Even if I can't really do much with a storyline in them.
Mm-hmm. Well, I just want to share a little bit of a dreamlike experience. Sure. Yesterday I was on hold for a while, and I'm like, geez, standing there, and I start cleaning a part of the kitchen where I'm standing on hold, and it's a part of the kitchen I have probably not gone back to the walls in 15, 16 years or something like that, maybe. And I'm like, oh my God, this is so dirty back here. And I'm cleaning it all out in this corner of the kitchen where stuff accumulates. And then I was talking to my husband Max on the phone, and I said, oh, I was working at my astronomy. And he said, you just said astronomy. I haven't done astronomy in 10, 15 years probably. But somehow, instead of dreams, I was doing my dream stuff is what I was actually doing. But it was like something like it just doing this work in this corner of the kitchen opened up some part of me that dated back that far. And then last night I had a dream about that corner of the kitchen. And what I found is that my husband had built a whole nother sink over in that part of the kitchen. There was like another where there's no sink. It's just a part of the kitchen, but it's like water. There's some kind of source of water. There's something flowing there. First I spilled in the dream, I spilled water on the counter, and then I'm like, oh wait, there's a whole nother sink here. So I think I hit in a vein of something that needed to be unraveled. And so it's like ties together the waking life, the whole clutter thing, clear your life. And it hit into a vein of really old material for me, going back for a decade and a half.
That is lovely. And it actually speaks to me of that non-ordinary state of consciousness. I mean, we don't think of that usually as when I'm cleaning the dark corners of my kitchen. But there are times when we're doing some ordinary thing and there is a shift in our consciousness that opens up that gate, the same gate that we get to open up in our dreams to have access to something that's under the surface of our conscious thoughts.
Absolutely. Yeah. This is just interesting, one of those waking life as a dream kind of moments that tied into my dreams and into the movement that I was doing while I was cleaning. And there's really like this connection to the whole idea of subconscious as the body. Like people sometimes talk about like the body is the subconscious, and dreams happen in a place of our brain that's the very most primitive parts of our brain, or where the dreams actually happen, which is one reason they're so hard to remember. And that's the part that's much more connected to our bodies too. So doing the dream work, doing the movement work that you're talking about, I think connects us more deeply to our bodies and to therefore the subconscious, the urges and instincts, intuitions that we have. Very much.
No, I think that's exactly right. And it is part of, for me, why the movement is such an excellent way to explore those dreams, because it can go there.
Yeah, it does too. Yes. Absolutely. Well, this has been a fabulous conversation. This is Selene Kumin Vega, and her webpage is called spiritmoving.com. And she is a local Santa Cruz resident, lives up off of Highway 17. And I just encourage you to get in touch with her through the webpage. And I wonder if you have final...
I just wanted to add another resource for people. At Saybrook University, when in our mind-body medicine program, when the pandemic started, we all were feeling like, what can we offer? What can we offer? We started doing a 15-minute meditation, guiding a 15-minute meditation live on Zoom every morning. And we are now down to doing it just once a week, but we have a repository of those on YouTube. It's the Saybrook University Self-Care channel.
Okay.
On YouTube, and it's actually on Spotify as well. You can get just the audios, but there's just hundreds now of 15-minute meditations, a few 1-hour meditation circles with several different people leading, some yoga classes, all completely free, easily accessible.
I'll look up those links and put them on the episode page, so you can check into that. So Selene, are there any last minute encouragements or thoughts you'd like to have for our listeners?
I'd say just to give, if everybody could just give ourselves time to stop and connect inside before we do whatever we're doing. I start all my meetings that way. We do in our program. And what a difference it makes in whatever happens next. If we take a moment to say, okay, where am I in space? What's here in my environment? Now can I go inside and just feel into what's going on in me right now? It only takes a minute or two to do that, and it shifts how we bring ourselves into the world and our interactions with each other and ourselves.
Thank you. You're a real force for peace, Selene. I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So thank you for listening. The Dream Journal is produced at the studios of KSQD in Santa Cruz, and we are live every Saturday at 10 a.m. Pacific at ksqd.org. The podcast is released on the Monday after the show. It keeps us growing when you subscribe, rate, and review. My name is Catherine Bell. You can find out about my dream coaching practice at experientialdreamwork.com. Email me at catherine@ksqd.org, that's KATHERINE. You can follow Experiential Dreamwork and hashtag The Dream Journal on Facebook and Instagram to find out about upcoming shows. I'd like to thank Rick Kleffel, engineer, music creator, also Tony Rissimano and Eric Nelson for their behind-the-scenes support. Intro music is Water Over Stones and by Mood Science. And tomorrow morning, when you wake up, take a minute to write down your dream and bring it to the next Dream Journal.
Was what I learned in the old school is there's no